Hi, thank you so much for tuning in to P2P Relates, where we talk about all things relationships. I'm Pat Renfro, and this month in December, I want to deal with avoiding loneliness. And this particular week, I am going to have us talk about paying attention to others. You know, this is the holiday season, and whether you observe the holiday or not, it's a difficult time for many people. You may have people you've lost, loved ones that are no longer with you, and memories come up like crazy during holiday seasons. It may be that your expectations aren't met as it relates to how you want to experience it. Or maybe there's a dichotomy between who you live with, how they see the holiday and how you see it. It could be that you don't have what you need to be able to celebrate or recognize or flow in the holiday season the way you would like to. For whatever the myriad of reasons are, this can be a very challenging time. However, on top of that, we have the pandemic going into its second year. And so we don't have the connection, the social freedom that we had just 2 years ago to be able to keep in contact with people. So I want to talk about how you can avoid loneliness by paying attention to others. Liz Kingsnorth did an excellent article on improving communication. I'll leave the links of the people that I'm referring to in the comments below. And I really encourage you to look at the article in detail and really think about it, because they both have some very positive, powerful statements. She has three that I want to highlight. One is be okay with hearing no. Many times we say we have a request and we ask you, would it be possible for blah, blah, blah? And yet if the answer no comes back, we're taken aback. And so what she says is, are you sure that that was a request or a command? The second one is be concise in your communication so that what you say is clear and neutral. Meaning, when I want to talk about something that may need to be changed in the behavior or how we flow with one another, the worst thing I can do is point fingers and start with you always, or accusatory language. But instead, if I can just state the facts to the best of my ability and then tell you what it is I want, that goes a long way to improving communication. At any time a communication is improved, it strengthens relationships. The next thing she says is make requests that are practical, accurate, and positive. And I'm gonna let you go read that article so you can really take that in. But when we talk about things that we would like, we must be reasonable in those requests that we have. And then it needs to make sense. We need to frame it in a way that a person can take without getting on the defense because of the way we said it. Maybe I'm sleeping later than my housemate. They're an early morning person and I'm a mid-morning person. And so they wake up and I hear pots and pans clanging and grinders going for the coffee and even maybe vacuum cleaning. But I want to sleep later than that person. Rather than say, would you stop doing such and such and da da da? Every time you do it, you wake me up. Who's not going to get defensive on that? They have to really be a person who's worked in a lot of self-development to not end up going a little sideways when they're approached that way. But if I can just make a suggestion and be clear and ask for what I want without presuming they should understand what I mean, it goes a long way. Okay, so there was another organization that published an article, and their goal was to help people who are going through the pandemic, struggling with loneliness, how to deal with that. And they had several suggestions. I'm just going to highlight three. The first one was to Acknowledge your loneliness or your feelings that you're going through from lack of socialization. Don't ignore it. The second one was get involved with an online organization or community of people who have common interests, where maybe you are meeting once a week or so. And the third one was get busy learning something new. People who learn new things tend to do much better than people who stay stagnant in their knowledge base. But when you're challenged to learn something and to figure it out, it keeps you engaged and involved. So I'm going to tell you my story. In March of 2020, when the pandemic really hit and everything started getting shut down, I was actually excited that I would be able to communicate with friends. I thought, hey, everybody's shut in and probably somewhat bored, so I'm going to be able to catch up with my friends. People weren't answering the phone. People weren't returning my phone calls, and I was feeling some kind of way. And then I went further. I went from feeling that way to wondering, maybe I shouldn't have a YouTube channel. Here I am talking about relationships and how to manage relationships, and I don't have any that are really manageable or healthy. And I was really concerned about, what does that mean? Is everything I'm teaching a farce or inaccurate or unrealistic? I was just really concerned. And so I had to do some personal work. I had to take my own advice, because I said, either the advice is solid and it really is true and I can take it, but I have to walk in it, or it's all baloney and I've been fooling myself and I've been talking to people and telling them things that don't work. I was very concerned. So I began to think about those areas I talk about: self-development, friendships, dating, marriage, business relationships. And I began to think about the principles that I had been teaching. And finally, I decided, look, where are you going with all this? What is going on? And I realized that I was comparing myself to others. I was deciding my self-worth based on how people were responding to me. But when I finally got to speak to those friends and the family members that I knew loved me, but they just weren't availing themselves, I realized that everybody was coping with this virus and with this pandemic and with working at home and all the things that go with that the best they could. And it wasn't about me. And I did a recording on It's Not About You. Make a long story short, I realized that if I actually got off the soapbox and stopped thinking about being a victim just because people weren't available to me, and I actually started doing what it was I knew I was called to do, focused on the things that were on my to-do sheet, not only would I get my mind off of what wasn't happening in my relationships, but I would be so busy doing what I was doing, I wouldn't have time to be on the phone or to talk or to do the things I thought I wanted and needed to do. And in reality, I should have been doing what they were doing. And so it's a journey. All of this is a journey. When you're lonely, you're lonely. Acknowledge that. The worst thing you could do is treat loneliness like a lot of people treat grief. People treat grief like, oh, they're dead. There's no need of me crying over it. I just need to get over it. I shouldn't react too strongly. It'll just take me down into a deeper hole. No, you need to address your grief, your sorrow, your loss. Be in touch with it, but then move on. Figure out what it is you need to do. So in summary of what we talked about today, I would say there's 3 takeaways. The first one is be real with yourself. Acknowledge that you are hurting, that you're lonely, that you need more relationships. 2, be concise when you're dealing with people. If there are some things you would like in the relationship or not like, be clear, be positive, and be concise. So people understand what it is you mean, what it looks like, some examples without any accusatory language. And finally, focus on growing and doing things, not just busy work, but purposeful work. Work that helps you get on track with what it is you need to do. The fourth one is be present with people. Pursue others. Pursue them, their well-being, cheer them up, be listeners. We have 2 ears and 1 nose and 1 mouth for a reason. We should use these 2 things less than we use these 2 things. So it's really critical that we say, how can I show up and be present with others when I'm talking to them? Am I listening or waiting for the next chance to say what I have to say? How can I care? How can I show I care? How can I ask more questions to understand where they're at and really meet them where they are and comfort them and encourage them and support them? That's how you build relationship. And when you build really strong, powerful, healthy, meaningful relationships, you can't be lonely. Your life will be full of different types of relationships, different experiences, different invitations, different blessing. It just makes all the difference in the world. So I wish you a great holiday. I'll be back with you next week to talk more about loneliness during this time, but a different aspect. And please hit the subscribe button, share this with other people. All right, thank you so much for tuning in to P2P Relates, where we talk about all things relationships. Bye.